My fiance's assistant shattered my favorite tea set. I watched him, my face a coal mask, and had my men break his legs. My fiancée told me to be more forgiving. But no one knew this whole pathetic drama was a carefully staged production by my dear younger brother. Come on, do it. Ruin this engagement. Then let's see what excuse you have left for not coming home to run the family business. After I gave my dear brother a lesson in respect with my belt, his tune changed. Have you forgotten who's in charge? You're the head of the family now. You dare try to pass the buck again, and I swear I'll break your legs next. And when I had a spare moment, I dealt with my fiancée, tossing her into the deepest part of the Amazon jungle. My darling fiancée, I hear the indigenous tribes love stories about entitled little princesses. I do hope you find your happiness there. I was sipping tea in the lounge of the new private club I'd opened when my fiancée, Chloe Vance, walked in. As one of New York City's most sought-after beauties and, more importantly, the fiancée of an Alexander Sterling, she commanded attention wherever she went. My assistant, Ben, approached my table respectfully. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Vance is here. I gave a slight nod, my expression unreadable. I felt nothing. She was here, yes, but certainly not for me. Unfortunately, just because I wanted to be left alone didn't mean she intended to grant me that courtesy. After all, I own the place. God, what had I done to deserve this? Truth be told, I never took this fiancé or the engagement itself seriously. It was all part of the character I was playing, the lovesick fool. It was a useful cover. Just 3 years ago, I was the one who made the entire NYC business world tremble with a single word. My decisions were swift, my actions decisive. But the Sterling family education was a little too good. The empire my parents built was more than enough for my brother and me to live lavishly for generations. I had absolutely no desire to take over. Conveniently, my younger brother Ryan returned from his studies abroad, showcasing a business acumen that rivaled my own. So, while he was still riding high on his own ambition, I simply handed him the keys to the kingdom. The look on my parents' faces was priceless. They never imagined that I, the product of their elite grooming, would turn out to be so utterly ambitionless. Please, I was handsome and filthy rich. Who in their right mind would want to slave away running a corporation? I had my shares, and the annual dividends were more than enough for my hobbies. A picture of brotherly love, right? My brother, my own flesh and blood, knew exactly what I was thinking. His face was a thundercloud. Alex, this is out of line, he'd fumed. I've been away. You've always been in charge of Sterling Enterprises. Aren't you afraid I'll run it into the ground? Besides, he added, we're brothers. Why do you get to have all the fun? I shrugged, the picture of nonchalance. Don't worry. The company's big enough to survive a few of your mistakes. Then I waved a dismissive hand. Now, hurry up and get to the office. You're interrupting my tea time. In his first month as CEO, Ryan plowed through a stack of backlog files nearly 3 feet high. Just as he was looking pale and exhausted, the executive staff brought in another mountain of contracts. Mr. Sterling, they'd said, these are the partnership proposals your brother initiated. They require your attention. By the time he finished, his girlfriend of 3 years, furious that they hadn't seen each other in 2 months, had put him on indefinite probation. His miserable existence was a stark contrast to my life as a trust fund bum, and the company dividends were even higher than the previous year. See, my brother was a hard worker. In short, we were the very definition of brotherly harmony. Just as Ryan was about to quit in protest, our father played the peacemaker. He clapped me on the shoulder. You can't just do nothing all day, Alex. Ryan's fiancée is already complaining. Why don't you consider coming back to the company? My solution? I arranged for 10 of the city's most gorgeous Instagram models to be delivered to my brother's penthouse. I locked them in with him for a week straight. Dad, I'd said, a man of his stature shouldn't worry about one woman. Consider these models a starter pack. If he needs more, just say the word. I'll handle it. If you could ignore the murderous look on my father's face and the trembling in my brother's legs, you could almost call it a happy family moment. In the end, I compromised. I didn't go back to the company, but I opened this private club to keep myself from decaying into complete idleness. But Ryan, once he'd recovered, couldn't stand to see me enjoying my early retirement. He was always scheming to drag me back into the corporate grind. That's when I met Chloe Vance. Her greed was a perfect match for my lust. One wild night later, I had a fiancée. Of course, that was a title she bestowed upon herself. Now, as I sat drinking my tea, Chloe finally made her way over, her assistant, Sean Carter, trailing behind her. They were close. Too close. They were whispering to each other, heads bent together, sharing some private joke. Ben, standing beside me, looked like he'd swallowed acid. He stepped forward. Ms. Vance, with all due respect, please be mindful of your status in public. You are Mr. Sterling's fiancée. Chloe looked momentarily embarrassed, but quickly brushed it off as if nothing had happened. After all, her assistant was a gift from my dear brother. Luckily for her, I didn't really care. A girlfriend is just a girlfriend. If she gets dirty, you replace her. The whole fiancé thing was just her way of adding value to her brand. I chose her in the first place out of pure, unadulterated lust. Or, as the poets would say, love at first sight. What's the difference, really? Still, a certain amount of proprietary claim had to be staked. At the very least, she wasn't going to tarnish my name while still attached to it. Chloe, you're here. Sit. I gestured to the chair beside me. When I saw Sean start to follow, I pointed toward the door. You, out. You're not welcome here. That simple command wiped the smile from Chloe's face. Sean lowered his head, his thoughts a mystery. I poured myself another cup of tea, a small smile playing on my lips. What was so funny just now? Tell me. I could use a laugh. Chloe shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Even though I'd been out of Sterling Enterprises for 3 years, my old reputation still carried enough weight to make her nervous. It was nothing, just idle chatter. I reached out and stroked her cheek, my eyes glinting with malice. Were you telling him about my little nickname for you? The amuse-bouche? I let my gaze sweep over her. No, that can't be it. After my tutelage, you should at least be able to tell your front from your back by now. I wasn't just being cruel. Sean Carter was Chloe's first love. But since the Carters were merely middle class, the Van Cess had forced them apart. In the grand scheme of things, with the Sterling Empire as the benchmark, the Van Cess themselves were barely above broke. Chloe was only with me to secure contracts for her family's company. To me, she was just a toy to pass the time. After all, even though I wasn't at the company, my brother was always happy to send a lucrative contract to anyone associated with me. Gradually, everyone came to believe I was madly in love with Chloe. In reality, it was all a narrative spun by my brother. He couldn't stand seeing me idle and was constantly looking for ways to create problems for me. Naturally, Sean hated my guts. So my brother, seeing I was a lost cause, paid Sean a cool $10 million to become Chloe's assistant. Ryan's offer was simple. Sean, get Alexander to break up with her, and I guarantee Chloe is yours. Vance Industries is yours. And when it's done, I'll give you another $10 million. Though Sean was skeptical, he figured, what did he have to lose? I was just an exiled heir, no longer in the game. His backer was the man actually running Sterling Enterprises. So, for the past month, Sean had been pulling every trick in the book just to stay by Chloe's side. I had warned her, if Vance Industries wants to keep its contracts with Sterling, get that dog of yours on a leash and keep him away. And if you're unfaithful before we break up, I'd added, I promise there won't be enough left of your family's company to bury in a shoebox. But perhaps with my brother's encouragement, Chloe's initial fear had morphed into indifference. It's fine like this, she'd said. There's nothing going on between Sean and me. She'd even had the audacity to challenge me. And don't threaten me with Sterling Enterprises. Your brother promised my family a major deal, whether we're together or not. I honestly couldn't remember why I'd picked her in the first place. She was beautiful, yes, but beyond providing a nice view from behind, I couldn't find a single other use for her. Now, faced with my mockery, Chloe fell silent. Sean, completely lacking in self-awareness, decided to speak up. Chloe, just explain to Mr. Sterling. There's nothing between us. We can't let this misunderstanding affect the relationship between the two families. That seemed to set Chloe off. She stood up, glaring at me. Alex, you've gone too far. Stop with the backhanded comments. Watching her little performance, I just laughed. My calm demeanor finally broke her. She was furious. Sean moved to grab her arm, and whether it was intentional or not, his hand knocked over the priceless Qing Dynasty tea set on the table in front of me. It crashed to the floor, shattering into 100 pieces. Oh, Mr. Sterling, I'm so sorry. Are you burned? Sean stammered. Chloe just rolled her eyes impatiently. Forget it. It's just some stupid tea set. I'll buy him a new one. Staring at the porcelain fragments on the ground, my eyes turned to ice. That was my favorite set. That was an antique from the Qianlong Emperor's personal collection. An imperial kiln piece, I said, my voice dangerously low. Go ahead, replace it. I want an identical one. Hearing the value of the set, Sean finally started to panic. Chloe, perhaps fearing I might get violent, stepped in front of him, her brow furrowed. It's not like it's worth that much. I'll pay for it. Just name a price. To you. It might just be a thing, Chloe said, her voice laced with annoyance. Can't you just be a little more forgiving? Huh. This was no longer about a tea set. I could live without the woman, and I could live without the tea set. But what I could not tolerate was being disrespected. I let out a cold, dismissive laugh and crooked a finger toward the entrance. In seconds, a dozen guards in black suits filed into the room. I picked up a shard of porcelain and handed it to Ben. Throw this piece into the ocean. Then I gestured to the remaining fragments on the floor. Make him kneel and put the set back together. For every piece that's missing, break one of his legs. As I headed for the door, I glanced back at Chloe. And don't think for a second the Sterlings will help you. Your family business? It's finished. A commotion erupted behind me. A symphony of Chloe's curses and Sean's desperate pleas for mercy. At the door, Ben hesitated. I shot him a sidelong glance. Spit it out. He asked a question so absurd I almost choked. Mr. Sterling, what's an amuse-bouche? I was speechless. After a long pause, I finally answered. Sometimes, Ben, when you don't understand a word, it helps to think about its purpose. He looked enlightened for a moment, then scratched his head. So why does it hold back 2 generations? I stared at my hopelessly innocent assistant, wondering if I should arrange a few models for him. My treat, not to break his heart or his bank account, but just to break his innocence. Because, I said flatly, neither the father nor the son gets a real dinner. Leaving him to puzzle that one out, I got into my car. As the driver pulled away, I leaned back, frowning as I pieced everything together. My dear brother was willing to try anything to get me back to the office. But if he thought this pathetic stunt was enough to make me take back the company, he was painfully naive. Soon after, on my explicit command, Sterling Enterprises severed all ties with Vance Industries. It only took 3 days for Chloe's father to crack. I knew there was a reason Sterling cut us off. It's because you're messing around with that deadbeat again. Mister. Vance cornered Chloe and Sean at the entrance to her condo building. The moment he saw Sean, he didn't hesitate. The slap echoed in the quiet lobby. I told you to stay away from her. You two are from different worlds, he snarled. If anything happens to the Vance family because of this, I will destroy you. He then turned to Chloe, his expression devoid of any fatherly affection. You will fix this with Alex Sterling. If our family goes under, don't even think about coming home. And don't forget, you're not the only heir. His voice was cold as steel. You've enjoyed the life this family has provided for you, so now you will make the necessary sacrifices for it. I don't care who you love, but if Sterling cuts us loose, you're done. Even if the Sterlings don't touch you, I will. Chloe lowered her head, the arrogance my brother had fueled in her finally giving way to a cold dose of reality. But Mr. Vance wasn't betting everything on his daughter. He quickly found out where I was and rushed over. Looking at the man bowing and scraping before me, forcing a pathetic smile onto his face, I sighed internally. Time to put on a show. Trailing behind him was Chloe, who had also hurried over. Sean, meanwhile, was feeling deeply wronged. He was hired to be the other man, so why was he the one getting hit? And having his legs broken? I had asked Ben about that later. Why both legs? You said 1 leg for every missing piece, sir, Ben replied deadpan. We couldn't find 2 of the shards at the scene. He then honestly pulled 2 small pieces of porcelain from his pocket. Here they are. Chloe, it turned out, was utterly ruthless. Sean, his legs shattered, hadn't even received a comforting word before he was unceremoniously dumped at a hospital. Men were disposable, after all. A man with broken legs was of no use to a woman of her standing, even if the broken parts weren't the ones in the middle. Alex, don't be angry. I was wrong earlier, Chloe said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I promise, there's nothing going on with Sean. You're the only one I love. I was just letting him handle the Sterling contracts because of my respect for your brother, Ryan. Sean, who had been brought here on a stretcher to add to the theatrics, heard his beloved's heartless words. The contorted expression on his face was indescribable. I sighed. Vance Industries looked shiny on the outside, but only they knew how rotten it was on the inside. If they hadn't latched onto the Sterling money tree, they would have gone bankrupt years ago. And they had a son. Without the Sterlings propping her up, Chloe would never have been named the heir. That's why she was so obedient, breaking up with Sean when told, then dutifully getting together with me. Not to mention the 6-figure allowance I gave her every month. Her parents treated me with such reverence because they were old foxes. They knew my status in the Sterling family. Even if I wasn't running the company, my word was still law. That whole family was a nest of vipers, with 1,000 schemes between them, but not an ounce of genuine affection. They'd sell their own daughter without a second thought. Right now, Chloe was desperate to repair her image in my eyes. She simpered, walking toward me, tried to take my arm intimately. I shook her off without a shred of mercy. Are you kidding me? Even if I were thinking about the next generation, I wouldn't choose a woman with the personality of a spoiled child and the body of one, too. Besides, since when was a 2-timing, brainless socialite qualified to be a Sterling bride? Chloe froze for a second, then quickly put on a placating smile, as if begging for my forgiveness. A smirk touched my lips. I'm sorry, but the best exes are the ones who act like they're dead. This whole display is just pathetic. The atmosphere in the room instantly dropped below freezing. No one dared to speak. My words had just sealed the fate of the Vance family. Chloe was stunned. She couldn't understand how the man who had never so much as raised his voice to her, who had seemingly doted on her every whim, could turn on her so completely. After a long moment, she finally spoke. Alex, don't joke around. I've already fired Sean. I promise you'll never see him again. We've been together for so many years. How can you just throw it all away? We were about to get engaged. I gave her an amused look. You should have known from the beginning that Sean was not an option. I was far too generous with you. And another thing, when did I ever say I was going to marry you? When did I ever say we were getting engaged? Don't flatter yourself. Chloe was dumbstruck. She racked her brain, and a horrifying realization dawned on her. I really hadn't. I had never once mentioned marriage or engagement. My initial lust for her hadn't been entirely devoid of feeling. After all, attachments can form over time. But any such feeling was conditional on her knowing her place. It wasn't just the forbidden presence of Sean. Her reckless decision to get involved in the conflict between my brother and me guaranteed she would be cut loose. She asked, a desperate edge to her voice, "Then why were you with me for all these years?" I answered with a complete lack of sincerity. Oh, let's call it love at first sight. Or lust at first sight, if you prefer. Don't forget, this was a transaction from the start. Sterling provided the contracts, and the Vances provided you. And my words, the Vances looked like they were about to faint, their faces a mask of disbelief. Truly a family of idiots, all sharing the same defective brain. It was like keeping a canary, only the canary suddenly decided it wanted to be a phoenix and take over the cage. Chloe's father stepped forward, looking at me cautiously. Mr. Sterling, Alex, you're the heir to the Sterling fortune, a man of your stature. Surely you wouldn't just play with our Chloe's feelings, would you? Suddenly, I had a very bad feeling. I glanced at Ben. Sure enough, his face was grim as he handed me a phone. I don't know if it was my dear brother or Sean, but someone had created a video montage of my relationship with Chloe. It wasn't just a sickeningly sweet highlight reel of our years together. It even included a forged marriage license. The scandals of the rich and famous are always popular gossip. Now, I was the main course. My jaw tightened. I swear, if I found out who did this, I would beat them so badly they wouldn't be able to get out of bed for a month. Looking at the sycophantic expressions on the Vances faces, I knew that if they had another daughter to offer, she'd already be on her way to my bedroom. Mr. Vance's voice was filled with theatrical despair. Mr. Sterling, our company's stock is in free fall. Please have mercy. We'll agree to any condition you name. He then added, as if it were a brilliant closing argument. Besides, if you don't think Chloe is suitable, we have other daughters. I looked at Chloe, the architect of this whole mess, and felt nothing but cold indifference. All I wanted was to live a quiet life as a slacker. Had she lost her mind, letting my brother manipulate her into the Sterling family power struggle? I knew with chilling clarity that I had to do something. If this continued, my father, for the sake of the family's reputation, would force me to compromise. The best solution was to retake control of the family business. If I stepped back into the light and made the Vances disappear, this whole media circus would evaporate overnight. That evening, I was summoned home by my father. At the same time, stories about my sordid affair with Chloe began to spread across the internet like wildfire. Sterling heir dumps girlfriend of 5 years in brutal betrayal. Source reveals billionaire playboy's twisted games. Sterling Enterprises accused of predatory tactics to swallow rival firm. I was unaware of any of this, nor did I have time to care. I was too busy staring daggers at my younger brother. Sean Carter. He was your plant, wasn't he? I said, my voice low and dangerous. And all because I sent you 10 models? Most guys would kill for that opportunity. You really are an ungrateful brat. Seeing the look in my eyes, Ryan just offered a placating smile. A throat cleared behind him. I turned, annoyed, and was met with the sight of my father, looking thoroughly conflicted as he stared at the headlines on his tablet. Now, Alex, he began, try to forgive your brother. He was just angry with you. All he wanted was for you to come back to the company. He didn't have any ulterior motives. I shot my father a look of pure exasperation. Can't either of you think of a normal way to do things? I was never going to marry Chloe Vance. By trashing my reputation, you're just creating more work for yourselves, stabilizing the stock price. What does marrying her have to do with me coming back to the company anyway? After they explained their convoluted logic, I finally understood what these two morons had been thinking. It turned out my dear brother was deeply jealous of my carefree lifestyle. By chance, he heard about Chloe's first love, Sean. At the time, Ryan was not only dealing with his own girlfriend's complaints, but was also being hounded by the models I'd so thoughtfully provided. In a moment of sheer idiocy, he gave Sean a pile of money. His plan was simple. At first, it was just petty revenge for the models. But then he realized Sean had ambitions of his own. So, Ryan decided to use him to provoke me, hoping the resulting scandal would force me into a marriage alliance to save face, and thus, back into the company. Setting aside my brother's twisted plan, Sean's story was almost impressive. A kid from a middle-class family who schemed his way into becoming Chloe's one true love. It was the stuff of epics. Except for the part where his abilities didn't match his ambition. The man had some skills, though. I could never learn to grovel like that. But none of them had counted on me, the guy who never plays by the rules. I was utterly speechless. Why can't you two focus on something productive? I snapped. She's just a woman. All she does is slow me down. Do you really think she has that much power over me? Did you think I was some lovesick fool? Have you been reading too many romance novels? My father chimed in. Alex, don't be so angry. Right now, managing the family's PR crisis is the top priority. I looked at him, feeling defeated, and nodded curtly. Of course. A little bad press. It'll be handled. I paused, slowly unbuckling my belt. But first, there's something more important to take care of. After I had the satisfaction of teaching my brother a lesson he wouldn't forget, the whole family finally sat down to discuss a strategy. A consensus that certainly did not include me, was that this entire mess was my fault for insisting on being a slacker. Therefore, I was the one who had to clean it up. The best solution, it was agreed, was to make the Van Cess and Sean Carter physically disappear. Under the threat of my belt, Ryan reluctantly agreed to a long list of my demands. The most important one, he would remain CEO of Sterling Enterprises. As I was leaving, my father pulled me aside. Maybe you should give Isabella Thorne a call, he whispered. That girl's been waiting for you for years. You're the only one who's too stubborn to see it. Before I could respond, Ryan, still wincing in pain, hobbled over. Dad, my brother's too talented to be wasted like this. Isn't it a shame? He pleaded. How about we make Alex the CEO, and I can be his right-hand man, leading the charge for him? I'm sure my brother would. His words died in his throat as he saw the belt still dangling from my hand. Poor kid. He still hadn't figured out why he was the one who got the top job. Without our parents' tacit approval, I'd have been the one on the receiving end of that beating. In the end, after some forceful persuasion, Ryan happily agreed to continue his tenure as CEO. I could see the tears of joy welling up in his eyes. See, I'm a great guy. However, I was also ordered by my father to get to know Isabella Thorne. Which brought me to the question, why was Isabella Thorne, the Isabella Thorne, here in my house? And why was she leaning against the doorframe, having clearly witnessed the entire chaotic scene? I was mortified. Hey, I said, a wave of despair washing over me. You're a goddess among women. Why would you be interested in a scumbag like me? You know what I've been up to these last few years? Besides Chloe, I've had a revolving door of models. I probably got everything but a clean bill of health. Damn it all. If marrying this girl hadn't been tied to taking over the family business back then, I never would have gotten involved with that empty-headed Chloe in the first place. I'd always been a man who appreciated curves. And now, after 5 years on the run, it seemed my fate had finally caught up with me. Isabella smiled and looped her arm through mine. Clean is all that matters. The rest is unimportant. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. And don't worry, I'll be sure to drain all your energy. There won't be any left for anyone else. Now, come on. There's a charity gala tonight. You're taking me. When I arrived at the gala with Isabella on my arm, it naturally caused another stir. A few acquaintances stared at her, their eyes wide. Alex, who is this lovely lady? Before I could even open my mouth, Isabella tightened her grip on my arm and introduced herself with a triumphant smile. Hello, I'm Isabella Thorne, Alex's fiancée. What the hell I was? This was completely fabricated. Before I could figure out how to escape this new predicament, Chloe materialized out of a dark corner. Alex, who is she? She demanded. You're my boyfriend. How can you have a fiancé? Is it true what they're saying? Were you just playing with my feelings all these years? I followed the sound of her voice and almost didn't recognize her. She looked utterly broken. The heavy makeup on her face couldn't hide the faint bruises from a recent lesson. Isabella whispered in my ear, her voice dripping with schadenfreude. By the way, Vance Industries is about to go bankrupt. I shot her a wary look. You're doing? She tossed her head, a smug little gesture. Of course. A trifle like that isn't worth my Alex's time. It would be beneath you. The contracts may have been with Sterling, but the Thorns were partners on a few of them. I know exactly where all the skeletons are buried. She smiled sweetly. If she wants to play games, I'm happy to play along. And if she gets broken in the process, I hope you won't feel too bad. She added, as for that Sean fellow, the Van Cess didn't get rid of him. They were probably hoping to use him as a bargaining chip with your family. Too bad for them. Getting rid of him now would cost them too much. Across the crowded room, Sean seemed to sense he was being talked about. He glanced our way, his eyes filled with hatred. Right? He needed to be dealt with. Before I could decide on the best way to make someone disappear, Chloe lunged toward me. Alex, I was wrong before. I shouldn't have lost my temper. But we're a couple. You can't just break up with me like this. Seeing that I had no intention of engaging with her, she gritted her teeth and made her plea. Help my family get through this crisis, and I'll release a statement. I'll take all the blame. Please. I roll my eyes. The nerve of this woman. Saving her family would be easy. A single phone call. But why should I hand over contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the Van Cess? For her? For her flat personality and even flatter chest? The thought was laughable. Chloe, you were the one who cheated. Of course the blame is all yours, I said coldly. What makes you think Sterling would ever do business with you again? Did you think this was some feudal dynasty where I could keep a mistress on the side? That seemed to trigger her. She started shouting, heedless of the crowd. But it was your family that orchestrated everything. What's the big deal about helping me out? She tried to grab me, but my bodyguards moved swiftly to block her. Isabella, ever the agent of chaos, fanned the flames. I'm sorry, but all of Sterling's contracts are going to the Thorns now. After all, I'm the real fiancé. This was getting more complicated by the second. What if Ryan decided to quit now? Isabella was really stirring the pot. Chloe wouldn't give up. Alex, how could you be so fickle? I was with you for 5 years. There isn't a single position I haven't. Her words were cut off as her assistant clapped a hand over her mouth. The explicit detail she was about to share made even me a little uncomfortable. I delivered the final blow, my face a blank slate. It's simple. At least with her, I can tell if she's coming or going. And I'm a fan of curves. Is that clear enough for you? Isabella's face flushed a deep red. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so crude. As I turned to leave, Sean walked over to Chloe, his expression grim. Chloe, we don't need to beg him. It's just a few contracts. Vance Industries can survive this. I narrowed my eyes. What a pair of fools. Did they really think that severing contracts was only the first step? This Sean guy was truly clueless. Humiliated in front of everyone, Chloe felt the weight of the crowd's stares. Biting her lip, she allowed Sean to lead her away. He shot a smug little smile in our direction as he gently supported her. Let's go, he said. My assistant, Ben, appeared at my side. Mr. Sterling, Ben murmured, your father has already put the word out. The Vance family is finished. I nodded, satisfied. A Sterling problem required a Sterling solution. It wasn't right to let a young woman fight my battles for me. Just then, a piercing shriek cut through the ballroom. How is this possible? It was Chloe. The sound was grating. He glanced over. Her secretary was whispering something to her, trembling. I didn't need to ask. It was undoubtedly news of their other business partners, ever eager to curry favor, terminating their contracts now that Sterling had made its move. Sean looked on in disbelief, muttering to himself, That's impossible. When I arrived, they all promised they wouldn't pull out. A corner of my mouth twitched. Did people this naive really exist in this day and age? Seeing Sean spiral into self-doubt, I couldn't help but laugh. It's just a few broken contracts, man. No need to question your entire existence. That's the power of capital. It's practically omnipotent. If you wanted to know the brand of underwear someone was wearing, you could have it delivered to your desk by the person themselves, still warm. In less than 2 weeks, the once mighty Vance Industries collapsed. Just as Sean was preparing to flee the country, he vanished without a trace. In a dimly lit room somewhere in Southeast Asia, Chloe stared down at the man tied to a chair. Sean, she said, her voice dripping with venom, I thought I was good to you. Why did you betray me? Sean, finally grasping the severity of his situation, began to sweat profusely, trying to beg for his life. But his mouth was sealed shut with duct tape. Chloe paced slowly toward him, then suddenly lashed out. Rip! She tore the tape from his mouth. The pain made Sean's face turn green. Chloe, why are you doing this to me? I'm the only one who truly loves you, he cried. Expressionless, Chloe drove the 4-inch heel of her stiletto into Sean's groin. He let out a gut-wrenching scream, his body curling into a fetal position as he clutched himself, writhing on the floor. Her rage unsated, she raised her foot again and brought it down with brutal force on the same spot. Half an hour later, Sean's agonized cries had subsided into weak whimpers. Sean, I'm going to ask you a question, she said coldly. Who told you to spread those stories online? He started to plead again, but she slapped him hard across the face. No more bullshit. You answer my questions. Left with no choice, Sean confessed everything. At the end, he was still shouting frantically. Chloe, I'd do anything for you. This was all for you. Alex Sterling never cared about you. You were just a pawn in the fight between him and his brother. Why can't you see that? Now, if we stay together, the Sterlings will never let us live in peace. His logic was creative. Chloe's face was a twisted mask of fury and regret. You're right. We both fell into their trap. But the Sterlings aren't coming for me, Sean. They're coming for you. She leaned in close. My family is ruined. But don't worry. Your life will be the price I pay to earn back Alex's forgiveness. Realizing she had no intention of letting him go, Sean started crawling desperately toward the door, begging as he went. Chloe, I really do love you. Get a grip. Alex will never take you back. His words were cut off by a horrifying scream that echoed through the room. Chloe's high heel stomped down on his face again and again, dozens of times. An hour later, Chloe was slumped in a chair, alone. On the floor lay Sean, no longer having the strength to struggle. She glanced at him with disgust. Take him to the compound, she ordered the guards behind her. I want to make sure he can never be a man again for the rest of his life. The command was, frankly, redundant. Her stiletto heel was still stained with a substance that looked disturbingly like egg yolk. Sean was already no longer a man. Isabella and I were getting engaged. The day before the official announcement, Chloe showed up at my mansion. Ben came into the library. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Thorne. Chloe Vance is at the gate. She says she has something important to tell you. I had a feeling she was here to make a scene. The moment she was let in, she dropped to her knees. Alex, I know I was wrong, but it was your brother pulling the strings. I never meant to betray you, and I swear I never did. Nothing ever happened between me and Sean. You have to believe me. I waved a dismissive hand, utterly unconcerned as I poured myself a glass of expensive red wine. Ms. Vance, I know it was my brother. So what? I said, taking a leisurely sip. And don't think that sending Sean to Southeast Asia means there's no evidence. Would you like to see the proof that you cheated? Here, let's watch the highlight reel. This year's Best Picture. I suggest the lead actress consider a career in Japan. I made a move as if to turn on the large television screen. No. Chloe's voice was a painful shriek. She scrambled forward on her knees and clung to my leg, trying desperately to stop me. When she looked up and saw the mocking smile in my eyes, she realized it was all a bluff. Of course it was. Did she really think I'd waste my time and energy having her followed? The footage would be terrible anyway. Weren't the models a better use of my time? They were sweet, they said all the right things, and they aimed to please. She was just a woman. I was done with her. If Sean hadn't blown the whole thing up into a public spectacle, her family would still be thriving. Alex, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me, she begged. I'll be your mistress. Anything, just please spare my family. I shoved her away, disgusted. The nerve. How dare she come here and pollute my home with her filth? Isabella had been watching this circus for long enough. Her patience had run out. She grabbed a handful of Chloe's hair and yanked her head back. You shameless bitch, she hissed. You dare ask my fiancée to keep you as a mistress in front of me? When you're a toy, you act like a toy. Don't think that just because you know how to spread your legs you can command the world. I had to look away. What followed was not for the faint of heart. As the sole heiress of the Thorne family, Isabella did not have a gentle temper. Later, the entire Vance family was sent by a still-fuming Isabella to a forgotten corner of the Amazon. As she put it, I hear the local tribes are fascinated by spoiled princesses. I want to ensure Chloe finds a lifetime of happiness there. That way, she won't have time to think about my husband. In the end, Isabella and I got engaged. And because this whole mess was my brother's fault, my parents decided to permanently hand over control of the company to him. As Ryan stared at us with eyes full of resentment, Isabella and I exchanged a look. Our life as retired slackers could finally continue.